Greetings, one and all, and greetings, ma'am. This is Arvind Sriram from the College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University, who is working as the junior correspondent in the Guindy Times, which is the official newsletter of Anna University. And today we are here with yet another interesting, informative event that is known as the Hustlers Summit. So actually, as a part of the Hustlers Summit, we tend to interview and interact with the great personalities and tend to collect information and gather information from their field. So as a part of this event, we have a guest of honor, Miss Meenakshi Shivaram, ma'am, who is an impact-based investment banker currently working at the Unitus Capitals. So, ma'am, I would like to give a hearty welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So as a part of this interview session, please, I would request you to give me permission to ask you certain questions regarding yourself and your field and your organization. And I would request permission from your side so that I can continue with the interview, ma'am.
Absolutely. Let me answer everything the best I can.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We are very excited for the interview, ma'am. So the first question to you is, for the benefit of the audience, could you please tell about yourself and the organization with which you work, ma'am?
Sure. Let me start with my own introduction. I graduated from Christ University in 2017. I did a course called BCom Professional. Alongside that, I also pursued a degree called CIMA. Post that, I started my career with Kotak Mahindra Bank. I was actually working in their audit department in Mumbai as a manager. I worked there for a couple of years, and then I took a couple months off to continue my studies. That's when I completed my degree CAIA, which is basically a degree in alternative investments. I also gave my exams for CFE and CFA during that period. Post that, I joined Unitus Capital as part of their investment banking team. Unitus Capital essentially is an impact-focused investment bank. It has raised over $3 billion across equity and debt deals. Essentially, what we do is we try to catalyze capital for companies and businesses that work in impactful sectors like education, financial inclusion, healthcare, agriculture, climate, women empowerment, and so on and so forth. So we essentially help get capital for them in either equity or debt form. As part of that, we're also in the process of launching a growth equity fund called UC Empower. So I primarily work on that as well.
Thank you very much, ma'am. This was very informative, and I hope no, you just told that you were graduated from the Christ University. So is it so that you belong to Bangalore?
I have a very mixed background. I was born and brought up for a bit in Mumbai. Then I moved to Bangalore when my dad got a transfer. Lived there for 10 years, finished my college life there. Then went to work back in Bangalore, then back in Mumbai, and now I'm in Chennai. So it's a bit
Okay. It is very interesting, and I would like to move to the second question. So the second question is, what is the passion that drove you into this field, ma'am?
Let me see. I think the reason I like doing this so much is because I genuinely enjoy talking to people and interacting with people. And this is one of the fields that gives you a wide exposure to so many different kinds of people, like people who are either building their businesses or experienced investors, either end of the spectrum. You know? And all of these people who are building businesses themselves come from a variety of backgrounds. So you have people like you who started in college, and you have experienced two-timers, three-timers, from a multitude of sectors. You gain so much of learning almost every day, even though you continue working. So that's probably what attracted me to the field in the first place.
Very nice, ma'am. You truly are an inspiration for many college students out here. So the third question is, actually, since the college students are new to this topic and to this field, could you please guide us on what is this impact-based investment banking?
Okay. Let me see how I can explain investment banking to you in a nutshell. Sort of basically, when you suppose you're searching for a house, for instance, and you're looking at multiple houses, you can either go and you can do all the legwork, you can do the hard work yourself. Now you have a certain criteria. Say, I want it to BHK, I want it to sort of be east facing, or I want sunlight, air. You have your own vision of how you want your house to be. you go instead of, and there are multiple houses available in the market. You have 2 BHKs, 3 BHKs, apartments, penthouses, everything. There's a whole multitude. You just don't know where to start from. You don't know what is the right fit for you. How do you go about searching it? So you hire a broker, and the broker does the entire legwork for you. They go, they find the perfect fit for you. They sort of guide you. They help you with all the interactions, the deals. They help you close the price, everything. Then investment banking is very similar to that. It's not exactly that, but it's a close enough analogy where you have multiple startups in different stages. Some are just starting out, some are much more experienced, some need smaller amounts of capital, and some need bigger amounts of capital. And similarly, you have investors of all types, some who are searching for startups or smaller startups to invest in, some who want much more established startups, some in particular sectors, like I want only in financial sector. So what an investment banker does is firstly, they help a startup in how they pitch the story. They sort of refine the pitch, they refine their materials, they help them sort of assist them in building out their financial model, their collaterals, all of that. And they help them find the perfect investors for them. So they do all of that legwork, handhold them throughout the entire deal process, and essentially help them raise money. When you add the term impact to it, like I said, it narrows down on certain sectors. For instance, sectors that actually you can see tangible impact, or they sort of serve the mass market, the underserved segments of society who don't typically get access to such products and services. For instance, financial inclusion. It could be, say, lending credit to kirana stores in rural areas, companies that work in that space, or edtech, which helps so many students across without barriers of geography or income gain access to education, healthcare, stuff like these. Certain sectors like these, which you can see impact in. That's where impact focus investment bank like Unitus works.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for answering it in a very, very brief and a very, very profound manner. So I would just like to pose another question to you, ma'am. Could you please explain about the various services that your company provides, ma'am?
Well, we have an investment bank, an impact focused investment bank. So we do all the work that entails in investment banking. We also have a sister company called UCIC, which basically looks into lending venture debt. And like I said, we're in the process of raising a growth equities fund. So where we ourselves would invest in companies that are in the growth stage or early growth stage.
Okay, ma'am. So you have explained it in a very brief manner. And yeah, as a College of Engineering, Guindy University is a part of many startups, and they of course want funding because any idea gets power only when it comes to action. So I would like to ask another question from the side of the startups and from the side of people who just begin companies. So what is the basic criteria defined for startups or company to reach out to you for this funding, ma'am?
Well, okay. Our investment bank and the fund typically looks at round sizes that are greater than $5 million. So that's when we sort of can assist the best. But I mean, we sort of begin our relationships early on. So we talk to a lot of startups that are just starting out, that are sort of looking for advice, looking for mentorship, connect them with investors or other connects who might be able to help them better, and sort of engage much in a much more formal manner once they sort of cross the 5 million threshold.
Okay, ma'am. So this was an information about what is the criteria. And now I just want to pose you a question about how do they approach you for funding, and what are the formalities or any such things that have to be followed by them so as to get a funding for their impact-based startup or for their impact-based project or something of that sort, ma'am?
Well, we sort of typically guide them throughout. So initially, how the process goes is they sort of come to us. We help them finalize their collaterals. We reach out to multiple investors based on what the correct fit is, and we guide them through the entire process, through the documentation, through the term sheet process, everything.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for guiding the people who started up many startups in our college. So I would like to pose you another question, ma'am. So as a part of your this impact-based investment banking, which sector do you target the most to benefit, ma'am? And you could also tell about the industries or the small startups which you have benefited and how they have grown successful in their course of business, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, historically, UC has worked a lot with financial services, but of late, we've expanded to multiple sectors like edtech, agri, and climate solutions. In fact, Climate solutions, more broadly defined in many terms of sustainability, EV, renewable infrastructure, all of that is something we're very keenly following and talking to understand the space and work more in this.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. And of course, renewable energy and other sectors, especially renewable energy, is a very, very booming sector because the non-renewable energies have to be reduced in order to reduce the pollution and other things. And of course, it is very happy from the side of student community that this kind of companies are funding for renewable energy based startups and projects, ma'am. So the next question is actually when it comes to banking and investment, many people keep telling many things, ma'am. So I would just like to ask you one question, ma'am. What is the fundamental difference between impact based investment and venture capitalism, ma'am?
Okay, let me break it down for you. When you say impact based investment, that's a very broad term. It means investing in any company that sort of has impact. When you say impact based investment bank, we are those intermediaries that help you find capital. And when you say venture, now investment in itself, when you're investing in smaller companies, suppose companies that are just starting out, companies that versus companies that are much more mature in their stage. At each stage, different type of investors come into play. One of those type of investors is who is a venture capitalist. But typically, and this is just broad and the definition keeps changing over time, but typically venture capitalists look for slightly higher risk type companies, so slightly early on. They give smaller amounts of money to multiple people, but they take that risk when it's early on to sort of fund you and see you grow. And they usually are looking for a lot of tech deployment so that there's some sort of innovation, some sort of disruption in the sector. That's usually where venture capitalist comes to play. So venture capitalist would be one form of investment. Now, venture capitalists can be either impact focused, non-impact focused, either way. So it comes under the investment bucket. Impact, you can have it's sort of two different criteria, applied or not applied based on their own thesis.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for telling briefly and profoundly about the difference between the impact-based investment banking and venture capitalism, and what is the connect that these two words have. So, I would just like to ask you another question. Actually, even the nationalized banks, we have many nationalized banks in and around our nation. Even the banks, they support such investments which impact social causes. So how is your company going to be different from the nationalized banks? How is it going to work differently, ma'am?
No, like I said, while you have multiple people, multiple entities like banks, even the government has their own seed funds. You have multiple funds which target different sort of segments. Some will look at round sizes that are very small, a couple of lakhs. Some will look at some couple of crores. Some will look at 30, 40 crores. It's a different segment. And in my opinion, with the number of startups that are coming, it's only good for the entire ecosystem if you also have that many funds that are coming up. It's not a sort of competition where you need to differentiate. You choose your strategy. Each fund has its own separate strategy, and you benefit as much as you can. In fact, almost every startup, if you look at their sort of how they've got funding, will get it from multiple sources, not just one source. So they sort of all play together rather than specifically compete with each other.
Okay, ma'am. So actually, at the beginning of the interview, you had spoken about one thing that is known as the inclusive credit system. And so could you please explain about what is this inclusive credit system and how far it has grown in India, ma'am?
Well, okay. At the end of the day, what happens is banks need a much more stringent requirement or a checklist in terms of seeing if you're eligible for a loan or not. But lately, you also have something called priority sector lending, where they're sort of expanding and giving credit to other segments of society. One key area of interest in financial inclusion is to make sure the underserved people, maybe people who don't have access to formalized banking services. For instance, I mean, in rural Karnataka or rural Tamil Nadu, how many of those villages actually have a bank branch over there? How many actually get access to physical? They have to travel 30, 40 kilometers every day to reach an ATM or to reach a branch. Do they get those services? So a big change that has come across is with tech, where because everybody has tech, has a mobile phone, you can actually enable banking transactions. You can enable any sort of transactions related to withdrawal, related to savings, related to investments from the comfort of your own home. You don't actually have to travel 40, 50 kilometers. So all the companies, and there are multiple segments within this, who work together to sort of enable this expansion of credit availability. So at the end of the day, if a person sitting in, say, rural Tamil Nadu needs credit, they should be able to avail that credit through some source. So they should, so there, and they might not have the typical sort of collateral, like I have a house to give as collateral, or I have, I mean, any sort of shares or anything like that. But it's a little bit more flexible. So people try and understand what would be sort of flexible types of collateral available, what is most appropriate, and based on that, they sort of underwrite that and lend credit. So financial inclusion is pushing the traditional, sort of just the traditional methodology in terms of a checklist method. Say they need to have this, then only I will give them credit. But trying to understand a little more about how what more can be done to push this expansion of credit.
Rightly stated, ma'am, because just as you said, the traditional banking requires a lot of paperwork to be done, and the people residing in the rural areas might not be very comfortable with the paperwork and collateral and other stuffs, and that is how you are helping them. So I would just like to pose another small question regarding how you have expanded your company into the rural areas, whether it is in the rural Tamil Nadu, or is it in the rural Karnataka, or whether it is in some other parts of India where you have expanded your business in the rural areas, and how you have helped the rural people in that region, ma'am.
Well, like I said, like since we're an impact-focused investment bank, we have worked with multiple companies who work in multiple geographies and multiple sectors, like fintech, healthcare, education. So we sort of help them capitalize. While we're not the ones who are doing the actual lending or any sort of service, we help the companies who are working in such spaces across India gain access to capital so they can continue doing that work to enhance the work that they're doing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am, for explaining so much about your sector. And this has given a lot of insight about this new word that is impact-based investment banking. And of course, I believe this interview must have created an impact in most of the college guys. So finally, I just want to ask you a last question, last but not the least. Finally, we want a word from your side about this initiative, Hustlers Summit by the Guindy Times. So we would require your encouraging words, any sorts of corrections, any sorts of appreciations, please, ma'am.
Well, firstly, great job. Honestly, when you start sort of young and sort of question everything that you already know, I mean, don't just go down that clear-cut black and white path. Sort of start questioning everything that's there, and that questioning usually comes from interacting with multiple people and sort of seeing people from different fields and backgrounds. That's when you sort of expand your mind into thinking much more. And especially in today's day and age where you need to really be helping society. I mean, see what you can do in helping society. It's just amazing to see younger people start up in so many different sort of impactful businesses to see how best you can be of help and be of use and catalyze what is available to improve that impact. That's fantastic. And through initiatives like yours, that's when you can amplify such stuff, right? And even looking at this interview, if maybe 2 or 3 people now get to know that such a field exists, that's something we can move into, that's something we can work into. That's great, because over time it's only through such initiatives that you can actually make a tangible change in our country.
Yes, very true, ma'am. Very true. The words that you said, I hope they create a great impact among the college students. And even the video comes on the YouTube and other locations. The other people, not only from our colleges, they should be able to see this, and they should get some information about this impact-based investment banking. And of course, as engineers come up with startups, they should be able to come to you for funds. And of course, I believe strongly that they should take your help to grow better. And lastly, I would like to convey my humble thanks as a part of the Guindy Times for accepting our interview, even in the midst of a busy schedule, for giving us certain time and for explaining explaining the entire concept in entire depth, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here, Arvind.
Thank you very much, ma'am.